Call of Duty, although it is one of the video game titles with very different opinions, many people could probably agree that its Zombies mode is one of the best PvE modes to ever be made in a multiplayer shooter game. When it comes to zombies, one of the most fascinating discussion topics brought from its massive success is the maps. And here at the JTA channel, with each of us being longtime players, we thought it would be a good idea to make a list about our possibly very controversial opinions on what we think about each of these maps. Before we share our actual full tier list though, allow me to point out just a quick few things on how we chose and selected where things would be placed. First of all, this list will only be featuring maps from games that were officially made by Treyarch. We also decided where maps would go based on our collective average opinion and knowledge of that specific map between the three of us, so that we had a lot more balanced rankings while avoiding there being any biased rankings from one of us. Shinonuma.
Bus Depot. When you think of a COD Zombies map, one of the last things that I'd imagine would come to mind will probably be this map, simply because of it being overshadowed by Transit and the other spin-off map versions, and it also being the most basic, with just 2 doors in the mystery box being the only things that you can spend your points on. While basic maps can still have that appeal to more casual players, Bus Depot instead just has this terrible to work around fire everywhere, making zombies explode if you kill them, which although it is something other maps have as well, at least those other maps have perks that can counter the explosion damage a lot easier. Some people might not even consider this as an actual map, but since it is in a Treyarch game and you can play a round-based version of it, this being one of the most stale and basic maps in all of Zombies, sits at the bottom. Voyage of Despair has a relatively fitting name because the only thing people usually feel when they play this map is despair. While it might look like it'd be a good zombies map within the first few seconds because of how well it portrays its theme, it very quickly wears off and turns into this confusing, extremely small corridors mess. On top of that, I get the boat is supposed to be sinking, but I don't think half of the map had to be completely underwater, which just doesn't work because zombies straight up run at the speed of you swimming, and the whole map is placed sideways. What am I even looking at? How do people play this and walk straight? The whole thing, including its other features and very notorious Easter egg, plays out like it's a modded workshop map if the code for it was completely AI generated. Do yourself a favor, listen to the title of this map's advice, and just avoid it. When you have a map that is iconic to the Call of Duty franchise as Nuketown is, you would eventually expect the developers to do something like make a zombies version of it. Now, while it is always cool to see new Nuketown versions in each game, the way that the map plays out is not so cool at all. The map being all close quarters, especially at the house interiors, which at higher rounds are areas that are pretty much unusable.
Oh, brother, what is this?
Makes Nuketown's layout not exactly translate well. Treyarch also had the bold idea of adding a new feature so that the map literally wasn't just Nuketown. One of the available perk machines or pack machine lands every few rounds, but this also in turn makes the map very RNG based and causes for scenarios like having to run around with no jug for a while until the map eventually wants to give it to you. So while it definitely isn't a terrible map, Nuketown Zombies still finds itself very low ranked simply because there are tons of other small maps you could play instead out there, and really the multiplayer versions of this map are simply a lot better in comparison to the Zombies version.
Outbreak is one of the most boring COD Zombies experiences I have ever had. A big open world zombies map where you can drive vehicles and complete all kinds of missions sounds like an excellent idea, and it is nice to see Treyarch trying new things, but I don't think it was executed well. You have little to no reason to explore and look for loot because you won't find much while looking around in the many small and empty buildings around the maps. Your best bet is to head straight for the objective, kill as many zombies as possible, and loot any chests around the area. Most of the gameplay is aimlessly running from one objective to the next. The small variety of missions and maps makes Outbreak repetitive after playing for not too long. Outbreak, being open world, is entirely pointless if it gives players a little to no reason to want to go and explore the map. I wish Treyarch had spent the time and money they had spent on Outbreak and instead made a 5th round based map for Cold War.
At the bottom of D tier, we have Nocturne Totem, the first zombies map ever, and nowadays really shows its age. With no pack-a-punch, specialty weapon, and no perks, depending on if you play the Black Ops 3 version or not, it's a boring map with a lackluster layout, with only 2 floors and a total of 3 buyable doors. However, it's not all negative. Noct is a great map for starter zombies players who want to try zombies while also introducing the classic ray gun wonder weapon and mystery box. All in all, Noct is an okay map at best and is really aging poorly as time goes on. At our second worst map in the D tier spot, we have Transit. Transit as a whole is just an okay map, and while it can be fun with friends, the fog is a huge bore and pain with the denizens always jumping on you. And on top of the fact that the wonder weapon is just plain terrible for not only breaking after a certain amount of uses, but its damage output is arguably one of the worst in the entire game. Its layout is also very confusing at times and just bad for a zombies map. It's trying way too hard for something it obviously couldn't do at the time due to tech limitations with consoles. The only thing this map has rooting for is the fact that its replayability is actually pretty good for all things considered with this map, and that it tried some really cool ideas even if they were executed poorly. Verrückt was the second zombies map made and has many improvements from the first, being the introduction of perks and traps. Its layout is also a huge improvement from the first, with there still being only 2 floors. However, the map is much bigger and there are more areas to explore compared to Noct. It's clear Verrückt was a step in the right direction, however it is much more difficult than Noct, with there being many tight spaces compared to more open-ended maps such as Der Riese or Shino Numa, and also falls under the same issue as Noct, where the map is clearly starting to show its age, with there being no pack-a-punch or original wonder weapon such as the Wonder Waff. Farm is just above Verrückt on the tier list, as they are pretty much the same quality of map, with both featuring the 4 main perks and a small amount of wall buys. However, the map layout of Farm is arguably better due to its more open-ended nature and it also being an easier map than Verrückt. Additionally, Farm features an additional wonder weapon and a melee buy with the Galvanknuckles, making it slightly higher than Verrückt.
Alpha Omega was such a strange map to make as the second last map of not only BO4 but the entire Ether story. The map has such a weird layout due to machines, walls, cars, and debris blocking the way, causing you to walk around them and traverse in an odd and complicated way. The map is also pretty small, especially compared to the other maps in BO4. It's just a little bit bigger than the BO2 Nuketown Zombies map. This being the first and only map where you can play as both versions of the characters and see them interact is pretty cool. And the map almost feels like a callback to BO2, with the Galvanknuckles returning 4 different versions of the Raygun Mark II being the wonder weapon of the map, and the boss fight being the Avodrago from Transit. The Nova Crawlers return, but are very irritating to fight against on Alpha Omega. Although it's cool to see all this old stuff return, it also makes the map feel very unoriginal. The map doesn't have a unique wonder weapon, it doesn't have a unique boss fight, and even the location and setting of the map are entirely taken from an older game. Some of the only highlighted areas are metal pyramids similar to the ones we have seen on Moon. The shield is the same one that we see on other maps, and there's even a robot that follows you and kills zombies for you, just like the one from Shadows of Evil, which does almost the exact same thing. I do not mind remakes of older maps or stuff from older maps returning to newer maps. However, if you're going to completely remake a map and make it one of the most essential parts of the Ether story's ending, at least try to make it a little bit more original and unique.
Shangri-La is our second highest map on the D tier of our tier list, and it's really a shame, because this map's setting is actually really cool and has some incredible attention to detail in terms of its graphics, but features some ideas that could have been executed a bit better in the modern day. Shangri-La's map layout is confusing and honestly a bit boring in some moments compared to other zombies maps such as Marauder, Totem, or Moon, and its wonder weapon compared to others such as the Wonder Waff or the Mark IIIs is just boring and bad even at some moments. The monkeys taking the perks from you can also just be a pain rather than a fun gameplay element, and the way to get to pack is also unfun compared to some other maps like Shadows of Evil, which find a way to make the route to pack fun. Shangri-La is just an alright map that has some decent ideas and a cool setting, but features some lackluster execution.
Shino Numa has a special place in my heart for being one of the first COD Zombies maps I have ever played, and one of the first maps that got me into COD Zombies, so it hurts me to see the map this low. Still, at the same time, it is a small map with little to do or see. The setting, being just a few connected small buildings in a swamp, is very uninteresting, and the map itself doesn't look that great either. Besides opening the doors and getting the 4 perks, there isn't anything else to do on the map since there's no pack and no Easter egg. The map has a good layout, one main area in the middle and 4 branching out paths, which inspired BO4's 9 and many other maps. Shino Numa is an extremely easy map. Because of the smaller zombie spawn limit, it's so easy that people can get all the way to round 1000 on older map versions. Shino Numa's simplistic design and its easy difficulty make it one of the best maps for a new COD Zombies player to try. I guess you could say that the map also has somewhat decent replayability because of the random perk locations, but that doesn't really improve the map that much, if at all.
Derice is an absolute zombies classic, being the largest out of all the original World at War maps that reinforces the main staple concepts of the franchise together in one area, along with it being the first map to ever feature the pack machine. It has one of the most iconic camping spots in zombies history, and the more open areas also makes it a good map choice to play casually. Unlike other older maps, however, up to this point, which have been added to more recent games and remain branded in the same way, Derice feels a lot more outdated, especially when compared to its other remastered Black Ops 3 version. This map also has things like the Wonderwaff Juggernaut glitch, which makes you completely lose your jug if you're using the weapon, which also plays a factor in making this map feel a lot more outdated. Despite this though, it still does well as a map that longtime Zombies players can still enjoy, keeping it at a solid middle position.
There isn't much to cover about the Giant that Andrew didn't already speak about on Derice. This version is only slightly higher on the tier list due to its better graphics, better gameplay mechanics thanks to the map being on BO3, and having at least some kind of Easter egg. The Easter eggs, however, are highly underwhelming and don't give you much of a good reward. The intro cutscene is disappointing due to how quickly they kill off the old Bricktoffen. Also, many of the glitches and issues from the original version are fixed here, which is another good reason why the Giant is slightly above Derice. Blood of the Dead is a worse version of Mob of the Dead. It's cool to see some of the original mob locations with such good graphics and the excellent ether story in this map, especially with the ending Easter egg cutscene. And it is pretty cool to see a new version of the Magmagat, but that's all this map really has to offer. They remove a lot of original locations for some reason, including the original pack location on the bridge. The new locations aren't that great and feel pointless sometimes. The new locations don't add much, especially compared to the locations that they cut. The new locations are areas you will very rarely need to visit during a run. The map is very closed in, and the layout doesn't really work that well in newer games because of how much better the zombies AI is, making the map way more difficult. The Easter egg is also very tedious and could take a while to complete. The shield being a power source for the entire map is a massive downgrade to how it worked on Mob of the Dead. The Warden spawns way too often and is more of an annoyance than a randomly occurring challenge like in Mob of the Dead. Blood of the Dead isn't the worst map in the world, but if you wanted to play a zombies map that takes place in Alcatraz, just go and play Mob of the Dead instead. Although Town is a tiny and straightforward map, similar to Shino Numa, Town is one of the best maps you can run casually. You do not need to do any Easter eggs or build things to set up the map. Everything below Town on our tier list is either worse because it's another basic map with a slightly weaker design, or a map we consider just flat out bad. The map is also very open, which makes it even better as a map that is just supposed to be for running it casually. This map having pack is great for casual play, especially when trying to get to higher rounds. However, the pack being surrounded by lava makes getting pack way more annoying than it should be, especially with how easy it is to die in BO2. I always thought that the atmosphere of Town was good, and the map looks kinda cool. It's also interesting that this map is one of the first ways in all of COD Treyarch Zombies that you could have all the perks in the game simultaneously. Although you did have to do a glitch to do this.
Dead of the Night is a very overhated map, with a lot of people saying that it's bottom level, likely due to its rough launch. But if you look past that, especially with it being a lot more polished now, the map goes from terrible to a map with some relatively high highs, but also some equally low lows. The layout, for example, I think is very good, fitting into the whole giant mansion environment, or maybe I'm just saying that because I'm a fan of maps that use two different spawn rooms. But then they take the environment and make it a main part of the map where it becomes this complex whole thing, where you have to look into all the details of every room just to unlock the simplest of things. Then there's also the Wonder Weapon, which is kind of just a fancy ray gun that is nice, but also has damage output that falls off real fast, making it another thing that kind of evens out to being okay. But then they have these vampires. I mean, like, do they really have to be here? Like, why do they have to spawn everywhere and make my screen all red? With this said, the map is definitely not as bad as a lot of people say it is, but the further it climbs above other maps, the less reasonable its position is, so I say it's just best to keep the map right here.
5 feels like it was taken straight out of a horror game. The map can be pretty creepy with its dark rooms and the scary but iconic COD Zombies theme playing in the background. The fact that this map takes place in a real life and significant government location also adds to the eeriness of the map. This eerie atmosphere gets ruined by the 4 politicians constantly yelling in your ear, and it's hilarious but amazing intro cutscene. However, Killing zombies while getting to play as John F. Kennedy is pretty funny, so I'm not complaining. I found the Pentagon Thief to be annoying, and it's good that he can at least be killed and that you get some kind of reward for it. It's also disappointing that this map did not have an Easter egg. I would have loved to see another cutscene with these 4 characters, especially with how good the intro cutscene was. The wonder weapon of the map is also pretty bad. Classified feels less scary because it is much brighter and has different sound effects and music. Classified is also similar to the Giant because it is a remake with underwhelming Easter eggs. At least Classified has an Easter egg cutscene that can't be seen unless you get to around 150. That has to be the worst COD Zombies Easter egg ever, right? Also, just like the Giant, Classified is only slightly above 5 on the tier list. Due to the better graphics, the Pentagon Thief is gone, and the map has an incredible intro cutscene, although 5's cutscene is better. References to older maps, Easter eggs, and unlike 5, a shield now exists.
Kino der Toten has probably the most deferring opinion from the zombies community out of any other map, with a lot of the more casual players saying it's one of the best ever because of its nostalgia and how it works so well as just being a map you can hop on and enjoy killing zombies, while the other group of players who are a lot more into the complexities of a map shut it down from it being way too easy and really not adding much besides the thunder gun. While I do agree that this map is summed down to just spamming the box until you get good weapons, then running around the main area until round 48, I do have to agree that as far as casual maps go, this has to be up there. There isn't any gimmicks besides those pesky Nova crawlers that make the map bad or glitches that destroy its features and make it feel outdated. It's just a map that you go on to do whatever you want, without having to consider doing any crazy side objectives besides turning on the power or holding down a button at 2 teleporters. It's Kino. There isn't much bad that can be said about the map. Revelations was a very anticipated addition to the BO3 map collection, and I have to say that there was a lot left to be desired. The way that the map is designed very quickly makes you realize that the map's only reason to exist is to do the Easter egg and act as a half-decent conclusion to the specific part of the storyline. The skybox, I have to say, is a really cool way of conveying a map that's meant to be grand and important, and the new things like the whole pack room and the elemental margwas are pretty cool, but other than that, the rest of the map is just places and things that you've already seen, which at the time of its release was cool, like, whoa, look, I'm in Origins in BO3, this is so cool. And then they released Origins in BO3. As a regular map, it works fine, but I just don't think it works to the actual scale of how Revelations should be. Nothing about it really feels that unique, but at least the concept that brings everything together doesn't make it feel as stale and empty as other maps that just copy areas. If I had to describe the entirety of this map in one phrase, it would be just as the very intelligent Johnny once said.
I know this map. Yeah, I know this map. I know this map. I know this map.
Still though, a lot more playable than a lot of the other maps. Speaking of anticipated maps that left a lot to be desired, there is also TOG, which is another map meant to conclude the main zombie storyline. The actual map itself holds up alright, mainly because it's just a remastered version of Call of the Dead that tries to be a little overly complex. I do have to give it points though for being a lot more unique, especially with how you progress through the map by working with the hidden hermit guy in the lighthouse to repair things and do challenges to unlock different equipment that make playing the map easier, unless he asks you to make him soup, which then my opinions of him change quickly. It has 3 different wonder weapons, which include the thunder gun, the other thunder gun, and the one you just shouldn't use, but the reason it still finds itself so low is because of the fact it's just an already existing map done in a different way, and replaces a lot of what made the original map good and very significant, instead for a bunch of random hidden complexities that most casual players probably won't even see. I will admit that I haven't exactly played this map nearly as much compared to most, so outside of Stuin's with shiny forehead, there is probably a lot of details I'm missing, but regardless, I do think Call of the Dead is the better version of these maps, and once you see what the map following this one is, you will pretty quickly begin to realize why TOG is here in the first place.
Call of the Dead is a very cool and unique map. The map pulls a Resident Evil and has a boss that follows you around the entire time that you play through the map. I really wish more maps did something like this because it was very intimidating. The map's story was interesting because it felt like it could be the plot of a horror film, which is probably exactly what they were going for. The fog that comes in every so often and the ice that can slow you down and damage you makes this map one of the most challenging maps in all of COD Treyarch Zombies. It's incredible that this map has 2 completely different and unique wonder weapons, whereas most maps only have like 1. The 2 wonder weapons, however, could be better.
Ascension is, in my opinion, the best zombies map for casual players because of how perfectly designed all of the different features it has fits into what exactly is typically looked for in a casual map. Firstly, it has some of the best training spots, with the large open areas allowing multiple people to freely train easily in their own parts of the map, and even good camping spots for those who want to do that instead, using the landers as very good escaping tools. And the map even makes the most common things that people know of from other zombies maps way more fun, like the monkey rounds making it so you and your team have to strategize which perks they want to get and what needs to be defended, with even the possible reward of another extra free perk afterwards. Or unlocking pack, which is very easy and probably one of the coolest ways to unlock the pack machine. The range it has for everyone doesn't even stop there, with the Easter egg being a very welcoming one for any of the casual players too, since it is very easy to do, with the only main hurdle being having to convince the box to give you and your team the right items. With all that said, if you yourself are a much more regular zombies player, Ascension is a map that was built for you.
Firebase Z, considered the second worst map in the B tier of our tier list, is an interesting map with cool ideas, but falls short in some areas. The map's layout is cool at first, but ends up getting boring easily, with its seemingly big areas, but after you reach a certain round number, it starts feeling smaller and smaller as the game progresses, even with the inclusion of the zombie attack stations. The wonder weapon is also sorta boring, and just feels okay. It more so feels like a dumbed down version of the Mark IIIs from Gorod Krovi, and is visually just boring with it, especially since it's just an AK-47 with some cool add-ons. Additionally, the Easter egg isn't all that fun, especially after you've done it for the first time. It gets boring quick, and the steps also don't add much to it. However, I will say that Firebase Z has a pretty cool starting area that is great for training zombies and keeping the flow of the map alive. Additionally, the zombie attacks after you reach a certain wave is actually a pretty cool concept and great for gaining points, especially when you're aiming for a tier 3 pack on some of your weapons or when you're trying to buy every perk on the map. Overall, Firebase Z is a decent map, but features an okay Easter egg and an okay wonder weapon, only getting saved by its cool ideas and execution in some areas.
This next map placement is probably the one where a lot of people watching this video will just stop here, but the next map is Die Rise. Now let me clear this quickly first. Die Rise is one of the most aggressively difficult, non-casual friendly maps in zombies, and is one of the only maps where the zombies themselves are not even the main danger, which is why I can very clearly see why this map for the most part has a much different community opinion compared to ours. Because I mean, who wants to play a map where a zombie smacking you too many times is second to falling off the side of a building? So because of that, this is why I always say that yes, the map is bad if you play the map the way they want you to play it. And now that half the people watching are gone because I'm still talking about Die Rise, let me be the one to say that Die Rise is so massively glitchy that it is actually some of the most unironic fun that I've had playing zombies. And here is a small clip as to why that is. The amount of glitches and jumps that you can do to traverse the map and give it one of the best and most fun flows is what makes the map good. When we say Die Rise is a good map, we aren't talking about the map where you're waiting for the elevator to come so that you can go down a floor, then slipping on a liquefier shot to fall off the map. We're talking about the one where I send my teammate off a cliff and then do a 250-foot perfect landing on top of their head because it looked cool. And now we are exactly where we want to be. The map where you can activate and build everything without opening a singular door, because I parkoured and glitched my way through every obstacle. On top of this, the things that they did add and are featured in this map are also usually just looked at for what it is instead of using their other strengths to make the map better. Like for example, Who's Who, which sure, its main purpose of being a second chance to revive yourself after going down is pretty bad because of how easily you can be swarmed while in the process of doing so, but you can also use it to do these crazy strategies in the later rounds without having to lose your other perks. This is how the map should be played, by not looking at it for what it is, but instead finding these different strategies for yourself, or just fall trying. I mean, that also works.
The Machine was the perfect way to start Cold War Zombies. After the Ether story ended in BO4, Cold War is more like a reboot to the COD Treyarch Zombies, and I think The Machine executed that perfectly. The Machine is like a reimagining of Nocturne Totem. It includes the original building, areas and things from outside of the map, but then everything else is new and original. making this map feel both like an old COD Zombies map and a brand new one simultaneously. D-Machine and Cold War in general are just pretty easy, making it an excellent game for newcomers. The Wonder Weapon is fun to use and works pretty well. It has 4 different elemental versions, which is pretty cool. The mini-boss of the map is unique and quite challenging to kill. As much as I like this map, it would have probably been higher on the tier list if it was more unique than a more extensive and newer version of Nocturne Totems.
That's suppose all of the qualities that make a good map. Its layout and design being a very dark, overgrown island really sets the tone that its themes are much darker compared to other maps. It has a bunch of nice features, such as it being the first to actually add challenges as a core component to Zombies maps. The Wonder Weapon, even though it's sort of a modified Siliquifier, is still pretty cool because of all the different ways it could be used to interact with different parts of the map, like turning spores to speed boost by shooting them. It also has not 1 but 2 boss fights, even though both of them are very easy. There is so much good things to say about how good Zetsubo is, and I definitely think it would have been considered one of the best Zombies maps had it not been for some of its glaring issues. The main one being that it is simply another map that is just way too overly complex. The planting system, which defines a lot of how the map works, can be a pretty tedious process because of having to go between different areas and change the water of your bucket. While there are a bunch of cool things that can be planted, assuming that you know exactly what kind of water needs to be used and when, not many people, including myself, actually put that to use in a typical game. Even when you aren't planting stuff, you are still going around the map anyways to remove webs off walls or perk machines and shooting large spores so that zombies don't use it to turn into the mini-boss versions. Despite all of the complexities this map has though, the map is still very good at portraying its theme, and is still fun to play for those who prefer to do a lot of setting up during rounds.
Now starting off the A tier, we have Forsaken. The last map of Cold War Zombies reusing locations from the multiplayer from the campaign is disappointing, but then again, this is not new to COD Zombies. Other than that, though, this map is just a fun one. Like Town, this map is very fun to run casually. Turning on the power and getting pack is quick and easy. This map being primarily open makes it really easy to train zombies. Unlike most Easter eggs, this map's Easter egg is pretty easy and straightforward. When you're flying through rounds while waiting for the teleport to be built, the beginning of the map makes it easy to save out many points early on and skip through those slow early rounds. I love the arcade. Playing minigames, including the World at War version of Nocturne Totems, is really cool. Plus, you get some pretty good rewards for doing them. Forsaken features a pretty fun to use and very effective Wonder Weapon. This is also the only map to feature a cheeseburger as an item you can pick up, so I think that alone puts this map above many of them.
Moon is the second worst map in the A tier of our tier list, and while that may sound bad at first, Moon is actually pretty cool for what it's worth, and its map layout is one of a kind for zombies. Even the starting room is a cool concept with Pack-a-Punch right there and one of the 4 main perks. However, the longer you stay, the harder the map gets, and there isn't really any other map that tries this idea, which I personally think is cool. And also gives a high risk, high reward system where if you stay, you could potentially get Jug or Pack-a-Punch on the first round. However, there is also a chance that you go down right there and you have to restart. Aside from the starting room, the map looks and feels huge at first, but the more you unlock and the longer the game goes on, it starts to feel like the perfect size for a zombies map. The Easter egg for Moon is also semi-difficult for even the most experienced zombies fan. However, once you've done it once, the difficulty drops a lot and is a lot easier. Overall, Moon has some really cool ideas and a great but semi-difficult Easter egg.
Ancient Evil is a very good map, even if the reason for that is mainly because of it revamping other different features from other good maps. The 4 elemental gauntlets are very fascinating with how they correlate to different parts of the map, and unlike all the other 4 elemental wonder weapons for each person concept, these are actually very easy in comparison to obtain. On top of that, there's a shield with one of the coolest designs of any map, a huge imposing mini-boss that is actually balanced and fun to fight against. Unlike the other maps from this game, it is simple to understand. One unique thing though that Ancient Evil did get right was that it is the first map to feature the newer challenge system that a lot more modern maps use, where you can choose to do challenges from a selection that can be done at any round, and upgrade to different, much more valuable rewards rather than the 4 specific challenges with the same consistent rewards that other maps were using. Besides the map lacking a bit of originality from its core mechanics, and how the surrounding environment doesn't really pull off the whole underground theme compared to other maps, there really isn't that much criticism to point out about this map. It is fun to play, and not overly complicated complicated like the other maps in BO4, which are why, even though it is a part of that game, it still earns itself a pretty good opinion.
9, right in the middle of A, is the best map of Black Ops 4, and rightfully so, with its incredible map layout, kind of reminiscent of Shin Onuma with the 4 main areas, while also being akin to its own with its 3 main floors. Additionally, I really enjoy the challenges on this map, rewarding you for playing well, and risky by letting the crowd give you power-ups depending on how well you play, while also being able to do regular challenges, giving you up to a packed gun. Furthermore, it's great for the map's replayability, which is also good as depending on which god you choose, the challenges may vary and can also switch up the way you play the game. 9's Easter egg is also fun, and depending on how good of a zombies player you are, can be a fairly easy Easter egg compared to other Black Ops 4 maps. Overall, 9 is a great map with some great ideas executed well and is always fun to come back to. Mauer der Toten is the second best map in the A tier, and for good reason. Its map layout is interesting and unique for a zombies game, with the multiple buildings and floors you can access, as well as its incredible wonder weapon that's not only good for just killing zombies, but are one of the most visually appealing in zombies. Furthermore, the Easter egg for this map is the best in Cold War zombies, and is not anything too difficult that the average player couldn't do. However, it can be a bit challenging at some moments and has a misleading ending. Overall, Mauer is an incredible zombies map with some really great ideas and a great Easter egg, and I hope Black Ops 6 Zombies goes for some more maps like this.
Buried has so many secrets and Easter eggs that I could play the map a million times and still learn new things about it. The giant, Arthur, alone, has so many things he can do that I still probably don't know them all. Arthur has so many intricacies and can be very useful and effective. I thought the main Easter egg especially was fun, although that step where the map becomes a shooting range can be quite challenging. The map's setting is pretty cool. An underground old western town looks surprisingly good, especially with BO2's older graphics. The new perk introduced into this map, Vulturade, is an excellent perk and I wish they had brought it back. Vulturade is one of the most valuable perks ever. Zombies drop extra points and ammo, and your HUD shows you exactly where things like perk machines in the mystery box are. This makes the map even easier than it already is. Buried features many unique weapons that aren't in other maps, like the time bomb, which is very cool to see and is something that they should do more often. This map also features one of my favorite Easter egg songs, Always Running.
S tier is where we place our undisputed top 5 zombies maps. The first of these maps has to be Mob of the Dead, which is a map that although you'd think would be disliked because of it taking place with an entirely new set of characters, and the whole thing being very close quarters, it is still up here because of Treyarch's ability to make characters outside of the original 4 that actually have a very fascinating story, and manages to make such a challenging layout work because of its amazing new features it added. The map is based off the real Alcatraz prison, which is why it is designed the way it is to not only bring actual locations from the real building into the map, but to also encapsulate the idea through the smaller rooms of being imprisoned, which is something that no other map even comes close to effectively conveying something similar that compares to its concept. The characters themselves are mobsters turned prisoners that follow the story of a prison escape that was actually attempted in the real Alcatraz, which again is something that you do not see with any other character in the Zombies franchise. Aside from how the map looks and who you play as, the map removes quick revive, which was previously one of the more necessary perks for players to use, with a new interactable feature that allows you to open new areas or power different machines in a way that is so innovative and evolves the usual flip a switch to activate the whole map thing that most maps do. You can also just use the time before reviving yourself with it to clear out the area and plan where you need to go next, which creates a perfect balance with the map's difficulty instead of just going down and having to wait for a teammate to come for you. The Easter egg builds itself into how you would set up the map instead of making you do a whole list of completely random steps, and actually tells you the story of the prison escape as you reenact it by building and flying a plane just so you can get to pack, which by the way is very cool. There is so much good things to say about this map, and the only reason that it doesn't find itself any higher is simply because of it not being remastered into a Black Ops 3 version. But still, this map, because of its innovation and how well every part of it was put together, still doesn't seem outdated and finds itself as one of the best zombies maps in the franchise. Gorod Krovi, while some think is the point where Black Ops 3 started to decrease in quality a bit, is exactly where we disagree, because when you have a map where the entire premise of it is to ride around and tame dragons dragons, the map is nothing but a masterpiece. In the middle of this Russian city with dragons flying all across that will either try to attack you by burning areas or can be used alongside you in the form of the dragon strikes or one that you can even ride. There's a dragon shield that shoots fireballs, robots that fly around or menacingly walk towards you with the best mini-boss design out of any franchise that's ever seen. It has such a well-made Easter egg with it being actually quite fun and challenging from the things you do, as opposed to other maps which make you follow slow and very tedious steps. And the boss fights, it's one of the coolest boss fights. I mean, you're fighting a giant dragon, and then you fight a Russian and a giant mech. Like, what's there not to love about Gorod?
I don't think I could ever do well at describing how good of a map Origins really is. And I also don't think I have anything to say about this map that hasn't been said a million times. But I'm gonna try my best. The look, the atmosphere, and the soundtrack of Origins alone make this one of my favorite COD Zombies maps ever. Watching the planes and blimps fly around the sky while fighting each other, and seeing the giant robots walking around both add a sense of scale that we never see in the different maps. I wish Treyarch had done more stuff like this. The 4 wonder weapons of the map are probably my favorite in all of COD Zombies. They look cool and are extremely powerful. Obtaining the 4 staffs can be a bit confusing sometimes, but it is still pretty fun to do. I think I only really have 3 extremely minor complaints about this map. One is the mud. It can be very annoying to traverse, and it can even get you killed depending on the situation. However, the BO3 version of the map does improve the mud a little bit. The ending Easter egg cutscene is very short and very underwhelming. I know it is essential to the overall Ether story, but the ending Easter egg cutscene is nowhere near good compared to the amazing intro cutscene of the map. The map can also be a bit challenging, especially the BO2 version. Although these few things bug me, they do not change my opinion on how amazing of a map Origins is.
At our number 2 spot, we have Horizon Drac. Often considered by many to be the best zombies map of all time, we personally believe that Horizon Drac falls a bit short from the number 1 placement. However, that doesn't mean the map isn't amazing still. The map's layout is just in that perfect spot where it's just small enough that it isn't too big that it hinders the pacing of the map, but still just large enough to have multiple traps and training locations. I would consider this map a more fast-paced map after you unlock the first bow, however the beginning is pretty slow-paced for a zombies map. Additionally, the layout of the jump pads are brilliantly placed so that there is easy access to every area of the map, no matter what, and only for 500 points, which in later game is nothing. Steering away from the map's layout, the Horizon Drac's Easter egg is actually one of our favorites in the game for its interesting steps and difficulty varying between how much you play zombies. The Horizon Drac is a perfect first Easter egg aside from the giant for the first time zombies fan, as it requires you getting the wonder weapon, which is the packed bows, and giving plenty of time to do time steps, and also infinite tries. In terms of replayability for this map, the Horizon Drac is the most replayable zombies map in my opinion, and while the number 1 map on this list has great replayability, it's slightly worse in comparison to the Horizon Drac, as the choice of which packed bow you want makes you want to retry the map or continue playing until you get all the bows. Additionally, its specialty weapon, the Ragnarok VG5s, is a lot more interesting in terms of steps to get the weapon compared to the number 1 map. In conclusion, Horizon Drac is the second best zombies map of all time for its incredible weapons, Easter egg, and huge replayability factor, while also having an incredible map layout. And at our number 1 spot on this list, we have Shadows of Evil. Shadows of Evil was the first zombies map of Black Ops 3, along with the Giant, and it's obvious a lot of time and care went into this map. I first just want to mention how perfect this map's layout is. In this map, there are a total of 4 districts and areas. First is the starting room called Easy Street, which is in my opinion the perfect starting room. It's small, but still features your 2 wall buys and quick revive, and due to its small form factor, the pace of the map starts off fast, making it quick for you to get to the main area where the 4 districts connect, known as Junction. This area is also great for not only training zombies, but keeping the flow of the map alive by allowing you to consistently move around the map. Additionally, the main area being able to go into the underground part of the map is a really nice touch and just adds on to what I was talking about with keeping the flow of the map alive, while also giving ease of access to Pack-a-Punch and the Sword. The other 3 districts are all very similar and not similar in terms of map layout, however I will not be going in depth with these districts as that could be a video on its own. However, I will say that due to these areas keeping the flow of the map alive, its consistency is nothing like other zombies maps and is in my opinion the perfect map size and layout, which is why in my opinion Shadows of Evil has one of the best map layouts in zombies. Another thing I want to talk about in Shadows of Evil is how replayable the map is. There are so many different ways to experience Shadows of Evil. An example of this would be, instead of starting on round 1, you can shoot the Shadow Man and start up to round 15. Or you can try and see how fast you can reach Pack-a-Punch, the sword, or even the upgraded sword. In other maps, there isn't the same level of replayability, and while some other maps have some of these systems or different systems to add replayability, they aren't on the same level as Shadows. And before I reach the last topic before the conclusion of Shadows, I want to talk about the Wonder Weapon really quickly, as I think it's one of the best wonder weapons in a zombies game ever, with its moderate ammo count and ability to kill hordes of zombies like it's nothing. I also personally think the Wonder Weapon fits Shadows of Evil as a whole compared to some other weapons like the ray gun on Noct. Now while I have talked greatly about Shadows of Evil, I do want to say that I think the Easter egg of this map is a bit of a letdown. Before we even talk about the general steps for the egg, the fact you need 4 people to do the Easter egg is a huge mistake and is terrible for not only solo players, but duos or trios who would want to play. Not everybody has a squad of 4 for zombies, and it seems like a missed opportunity for getting new players to try Shadows as a first Easter egg, instead of doing the giant Easter egg, which was obviously made to be easy and an introduction instead. Additionally, the Shadow steps are incredibly lackluster, short, and in some moments, boring even. For an incredible map like this, it's obvious they didn't put as much effort into the Easter egg as to either finish the map on time or set up the rise and drag. In conclusion, Shadows of Evil is an incredible map with an amazing layout and huge replayability, and while it may be a struggle for newcomers of zombies, once you learn the map, you truly appreciate the time spent into Shadows of Evil and why it deserves our #1 spot. With all of the maps now placed, that concludes the video. Thank you for watching. We here at JTA appreciate all of your support to the channel, and keep in mind that this isn't an actual official list of maps that we think are objectively better, but more just our opinions of the best maps placed in this format for your own enjoyment, even though Johnny's opinion is almost always right. So if you have any opinions against that, or want to share your favorite zombies maps, be sure to let us know in the comments below, as well as feel free to let us know if you enjoyed this new scripted content we've been doing, and if you want to see more of it. But other than that, once again, thank you all for watching and all the recent support. The links to our other main channels and social medias can be found in the description. We will of course see you all in the next video. I see the SMG.
What? What SMG is it?
There's a speck across the map! I'll show you, but careful.